This video is brought to you by Harold Sack, who gave me a massive 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon. Calix versus Keranos with a one lander that comes in tapped, no good. Okay, we've only got one of our colours there, but we're on the draw, so let's just try it. Get rid of the Umbra Mystic and hopefully we can fix our colours with the Demolition Field. Okay, that's lucky. We get into a white source, so yeah, we're still going pretty slow, just getting into the Calix on turn 3 by the looks of it. I think twice at the end of the turn for our opponent, draws a card, and then we see Expressive Iteration, not holding up counter magic at least. And they have exiled a Cyclonic Rift, so could encourage them to bounce our commander. We draw into Mirari's Wake, so get the Iganjo down, and Calix comes into play, putting a plus counter on itself, making it a 3 mana 3/3. So I think a Cyclonic Rift now would be hasty, but yeah, okay, going for Drawn from Dreams instead. If we can't get protection from blue, then Cyclonic Rift could bounce our Calix with all the enchantments on it as well. So yeah, we're in a tough spot here really. Alright, Hall of Heliod's Generosity. We will go for Audacity. Plus counter on the Calix, of course. Then it can be the Ethereal Armour onto the Calix, giving it +1/+1 per enchantment we control, as well as first strike. Okay, and our opponent scooping with a Cyclonic Rift in hand. Try against Lord Windgrace this time, and yeah, not doing well on our colours. Again, we could try and get into white off the top like we did previously, but I don't fancy our odds there. Yeah, it's half decent hand, but we'll mulligan. Alright, that is way better, so keep that. Get rid of Sage's Reverie. And we are on the draw again, so we'll start at 7. A turn 1 gamble from our opponent. Drawing Mirari's Wake again, we just drop down a Temple Garden tapped. They discarded a Glacial Chasm, so we'll assume that that's not what they tutored for. I'm sure they'll be able to fish that out of the bin easily enough in a Lord Windgrace deck. Okay, don't mind seeing a tap land from my opponent. Another land for us means that we go for Sylvan Library. Now a Birds of Paradise for our opponent, so they're going slower than they'd like, I imagine. We draw a couple more lands and Denetha, New Benalia's Light. So let's just keep all of these. And that can be Brushland, get down the Calix on turn 3. Playing the Valakut Exploration and then surely getting Landfall after this. 5 cards in hand. Not playing Landfall into the Valakut Exploration. This is a game that's not going as well for our opponent as I thought it would. Alright, some really good stuff there. It's just a question of how much of it we can actually play. I think we'll be fine getting down Sithis, Grifspoon and the Rancor this turn. So yeah, we'll gain some life from Sithis. Let's just go really hard on the Sylvan Library whilst our opponent is struggling. Play the Sithis first of all. A plus counter on our Calix again. We are going full Voltron here. Rancor will gain us a life to the Sithis as well as draw us a card. And we are definitely keeping hold of lands this game. Then Grifspoon will take a damage to it, but that damage will instantly be healed by the Sithis. And it will give our commander flying and a +1 buff to power. And then obviously the plus counter continues to go on the Calix. Drawing to Daybreak Coronet this time. So we've got a 9/6 commander, and yeah, our opponent's going too slow there unfortunately, so we'll get a game in at some point. We'll try against Rolesk this time, and yeah, we actually have some ramp and a means of protecting our commander. So keep that. Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth into play on turn 1 will allow us to tap our fetches for mana. Eidolon of Blossoms is excellent, so we'll just fix our white mana because obviously Yavimaya doesn't help with that. And still just green mana and no ramp for our opponent. We see an Arid Mesa, so we'll enchant with the Fertile Ground the basic forest so that if we lose the forest we don't lose multiple colours at least. The basics are slightly less fragile than the non-basic lands. Okay. Jared Conclave Exile this time. And we have some good enchantresses, so it should do quite well this game, which means that we're not going to get a full game seemingly. Turn 1 Dragon Master Outcast, they are quite a ways away, need 6 lands in order to have that start triggering. Nykthos could be good for us later on. We'll throw down the Wooded Bastion, and Argothian Enchantress triggers off more things than the SRAM does, so we'll get that in. It's enchantments on the Argothian Enchantress as opposed to auras on the SRAM. And then we see a bounce land from the colour player, the 1-1 going up against the 0-1. Obviously not going to fall for that. And the bounce lands do take them further away from this thing triggering, so yeah, I mean that's good for us, I suppose. Get another colour into play in the form of a forest, if Magic Online would be so kind. No? Are you not going to put the forest out? Oh, thank you, very kind. So Calix obviously triggers the Argothian Enchantress, which the SRAM does not. Draws us into a Timely Ward, which can help protect our commander. Calix is the only creature that we can target on our side of the field, and we'll put the Fear of God in our opponent and swing in for 0. Another tap land for our opponent in the Myriad Landscape, so playing some pretty slow stuff for 1v1. We get another forest, so we'll just throw out the forest here, and it can be the SRAM. So convert some mana through that for SRAM Senior Edificer, and then Keen Sense onto the Calix, and that will draw us a couple of cards, and when Keen Sense hits our opponent, we'll draw a card there as well. Okay, and we're definitely going to hit because we've just drawn into a Griff's Boon, so might as well play that as well here. Just like in the last game, buffs by +1 to attack, and it will put a plus counter on there as well, gives flying also. Drew into some lands and a Citizen Champion, and our commander is now a 6/5 flyer, so they're on a decent clock now. So Calix hits, and we're going to get a copy of an enchantment, so let's just make it the Keen Sense, and yeah, put it on the SRAM. I think we might be able to swing in with that next turn. Put a plus counter on the SRAM as well, just for the fun of it, whilst our opponent's going a bit slower. Drew into a Grafted Growth for some ramp, get rid of a basic forest, should be fine at this point. Cracking the Myriad Landscape now, so yeah, it's turn 4. They're looking down the barrel of Calix, and they're still fixing their colours here, unfortunately. Don't ever run Myriad Landscape in 1v1 personally, it's just far, far too slow. I don't often run the bounce lands either, unless there's some kind of combo I can do with them. Landfall and stuff like that, it works well in. Okay, we get another Keen Sense in the form of Sixth Sense. So we get down the Serra's Sanctum this turn, I think. Let's go for Sixth Sense onto the Calix. Draws us with the Enchantresses. And there we see Utopia Sprawl and a Wild Growth as well. So that's quite the no-brainer, really. We'll make double green through our non-basics, because I'm going to load up the enchantments on one land here. Gets us into Swords to Plowshares and Aether. It's tempting to just get down the Reliquary Tower here, actually. The forest can tap for white. Then it's Wild Growth onto the same land, obviously drawing us more cards. And then we drop the Serra's Sanctum, which, how much is that tapping for? 7 mana. So let's tap out here. We've got 2 green and 8 white, so might as well go Citizen Champion. And yeah, our opponent scoops there. I mean, that is fair enough that we're going way too fast for our opponent. The power levels are mixed matched here. Let me try something. Alright, I've had viewers telling me that they don't want me to resort to going easy on my opponent just to get a full game out here, but I'm going to go against that. And yeah, assuming that this player is a more casual player as well, we'll do a social experiment here and try and go slower and see if they stick it out or not. Not trying to patronise my opponent, it's just that if I'm struggling to get full games, then well, it might be interesting for the video to see if players actually stick it out here if we go easy. So, does that mean not playing a turn 1 Sol Ring? I mean, it feels dirty to just ignore that Sol Ring. I mean, I'm immediately going back on my word here. Yeah, get down the Sol Ring and see if they scoop. Prismatic Lens for our opponent. We get into a Brushland, so Wooded Bastion makes some Celestia mana for us. And we get down a turn 2 Calix thanks to the fast mana. Now a Felwar Stone for Yasova, followed by a Simic Signet, 4 cards in hand, and they're ramping nicely here. Gruul Turf will bounce a basic, so our opponent's mana going much better than the last game, fortunately for us. Now then, Are we allowed to get down an Enchantress if our opponent's doing better here? Really second guessing myself. Let's get a dual land with the Wooded Foothills. And then it's the Mesa Enchantress followed by Rancor onto the Calix. We'll give +2 to power and trample. And we'll draw to the Enchantress, of course. Gets us into Angelic Gift, which will give flying and cantrip when it enters. Calix, we're always going to be putting plus counters on itself, I think. So already by turn 3, a 6/4 with trample. So swinging in with the 6/4, and we will get a copy of the Rancor here. Rancor wasn't cast, it just enters the battlefield, so the Enchantress doesn't trigger there. But ending the turn with a 9/5 commander. Yasova Dragonclaw into play, and following that up with some more ramp in a Solemn Simulacrum. So now what I should do here, and I'm going to enrage some of the viewers, but what I should do is go for Song of the Dryads onto the Yasova, and probably switch off the whole damn deck, but that relies on the fact that they don't have removal for enchantments, which they could do in Teamer, obviously. Yeah, I'm not going to do that for the sake of this little experiment that we're doing. Go for, yeah, Wolfwillow Haven onto the Plains. Draws us an Ancient Tomb for next turn. And then we want the Umbra Mystic in play, I think. So, what are we doing after that? It's Angelic Gift, so I'll cycle some mana through this. And Umbra Mystic is going to give our enchanted creatures totem armor. So even if we don't have any totem armor, we're protecting our Calix. So now we don't have to take damage to the Painland. It can be Angelic Gift onto the Calix. Like I said before, they can take control of the Mesa Enchantress, but we've just drawn into a Sithis. And our commander has flying here. Draw with the Angelic Gift itself on its own trigger. And that is a Heliod's Pilgrim. So we can put a relevant aura into our hand. So allowing our opponent a turn with the Yasova could do something. Put our opponent on 17 points of commander damage. And we've got 2 Rancors already, so I think making a copy of the Angelic Gift will be fine. And Angelic Gift onto the Mesa Enchantress maybe, so that we can give that totem armor. So if they decide to sacrifice it with Yasova's ability, then we should get it back under our control. Angelic Gift obviously cantrips again when it enters, and that draws us into a forest for the turn, so right, let's see what our opponent can do. A Mind Stone into play first of all. Noteworthy there is a Safe Haven as well. They sacrifice the Mind Stone straight away to try and get into something that will save them. Can maybe gain control of the Calix via some other means. Life's Legacy sacrifices the Solemn, so they draw 2 and then 1 to the Solemn as well, wanting to keep their Yasova online. Okay, and our opponent's just disconnected here, it says in the bottom right, which usually means that they've quit out of Magic Online without conceding the game. So I'll leave it a minute or two, and if they don't show up again, it might be connection errors, but if they don't show up again, we'll call it a win. Alright, we'll call this one a victory, and well, regardless of what happens in the next game, this is the last one. And now we're probably about to get battered up against Tasigur. We can get down Eidolon of Blossoms on turn 3 there, so we'll try it. Turn 1 Halimar Depths for our opponent. And yeah, we'll just get down a green source and pass, ready for the Eidolon of Blossoms next turn. And holding up Simic Mana, so could be going for a means of counter magic or responding to us at instant speed. Drop the Ancient Tomb into the Eidolon of Blossoms. Okay, and that comes straight down, cantrips immediately, and draws us an Archon of Sun's Grace. So not doing anything at the end of our turn. Our opponent has all 3 colours and goes for Oko, Thief of Crowns, which is probably going to dominate the rest of the game. Alright, Swords to Plowshares, I don't hate. Drop a Plains. Do we just start making Angels then, if we're worried about Oko? Swing into the Oko first of all, knocking it down to 2 loyalty. The creature removal is a plus for some reason on Oko, which is the thing that breaks it, so yeah, they're still going to be able to remove our creatures as the game goes on until we get rid of it. But I think Sigil of the Empty Throne is going to be a headache for them while they don't have counter magic held up, we assume. So yeah, we'll just challenge them to have removal on that. Might even go for the Archon of Sun's Grace next turn and try and land a Calix into that. But they can just plus on the Oko in the meantime, so we'd have to do both of them in one turn. Edge of Autumn allows our opponent to go for a land, and then playing a land after the Edge of Autumn so that it was switched on. Not too many cards in the bin at the moment for Tasigur, and they did have some removal in the form of Broken Bond, making a food token out of Oko. So it will survive this next attack, another land for us. So I think we just need to get another body into play here. Yeah, we'll hold up, well we can't hold up Swords to Plowshare, so might as well go for the coloured mana. And they're obviously going to remove this next turn, but we'll still have a couple of 3/3s in play. And if they play their Tasigur, we can Swords to Plowshares on that. Also, if we force them to go for the +1, then it's better than the +2, because obviously that's less loyalty that they're adding. So we're just forcing their hand really, or trying to. So plussing on the Archon. Then it's a Sleight of Hand, looking at the top 2 cards, one in hand, the other on the bottom. Then a Serum Visions, draw and scry 2. So we're seeing a much more interactive game here, still going for something else, say Night's Whisper, up to 4 cards in hand. And then Targeted Discard maybe? No, instead going after the Tasigur. We'll add some command attacks onto that thing. Need to start drawing into enchantments though. A Swords to Plowshares on Tasigur first of all, and then we will see if we manage to get rid of the Oko. Turn both in at Oko just in case they've got some means of free removal. Alright, we can make some more white mana with the Marsh Flats, so get that down and throw out the Calix. Mesmeric Orb is going to start milling us. More importantly, it will mill our opponent. Then a Demonic Tutor. So do we want to go for Boseiju onto the Mesmeric Orb? If our opponent has gone for that now, then it means that he's eager to start milling. Yeah, I think that's alright. It gains our opponent a land, unfortunately, but yeah, that Demonic Tutor might have had the Mesmeric Orb in mind. So let's go for that. And it's not easy to counter the Boseiju because it's an ability and not a spell, so not likely that we would have struggled getting that through. Okay, we just draw into another land, so yeah, I mean, we just can't do anything if we don't draw into enchantments in this deck. It's an enchantress deck, as you're all aware. So we're just giving our opponent all the time in the world here. Obviously, he's dealt with us quite nicely, as Tasigur tends to. It's funny that if we could break the legendary rule, we could make copies of Calix with his own ability, which would be fun, potentially, in a multiplayer game. Don't know if you'd have time to do much of anything with that in 1v1. A Golgari Key Rune for our opponent, followed by a Spore Frog, and yeah, it's got Doomsday combo apparently. That's no doubt what he tutored for. Alright, time to see which land we draw. A Basic Forest, so not that we could have done anything with the Spore Frog in play anyway. I'm assuming our opponent's going to win next turn off the back of the Doomsday combo. Deciding to, alright, sacrifice the Spore Frog to not take the damage, worried about some kind of instant speed aura maybe, although could have sacked the Spore Frog in response to that anyway. So let's see which Doomsday combo our opponent's gone for. Alright, it was basically Thassa's Oracle, reveal the top cards and win the game with that, so hopefully you all enjoyed this visit to Calix, try my damnedest to get some interactive games there and got one in the end. So leave a like on the video and consider donating on Patreon if you do like the games. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.